Hi, welcome to the channel. Welcome back if you are a current subscriber. Today I'm analyzing the body language of Candace, the mother of missing 5-year-old Summer Wells. This particular interview is on Dr. Phil's channel, of course. I will leave the full video in the description box below. Let's get into it.
You took Summer in the front door.
Yes.
And you said to the three boys, keep an eye on Summer.
Yes.
Okay. Then you did what?
Then I went back outside to my mom's camper, which was right next to the house. And I had to fix her knee brace for her.
Okay. She had a knee brace on?
Yeah.
And that took?
Only 2 minutes.
Okay. And then what'd you do?
I went back in the house.
When you went back in, what'd you see?
The 3 boys sitting there watching TV.
Okay. And no Summer?
No, sorry.
Okay. What'd you do then?
I asked the boys where she was at. And they told me that she went downstairs to play with her toys.
So even though that it was a short bit of time, there are already so many things going on. First, I want to note that substance use can affect someone's body language and how that can be analyzed. It can definitely slow things down or speed things up. What we're seeing here, I am not certain is substance use, though it has been speculated that she and her husband have substance use issues. I am noticing that there's a lot of drooping of features, so when there's something uplifting, then that would indicate something else is going on in that particular moment, and that's going to become important here very shortly. Often, even when substance use is involved, there's some sort of consistency of slowing down or speeding up of behaviors, and what we're seeing here is a bit of a drool. Some drooping of features and uplifting of features would be the opposite of that and would require a bit more energy and would veer away from her baseline in this video. I'm also aware of her story changes, which of course someone who is not guilty of something wouldn't have to do. They would not have to change their story so frequently. But in this one interview, what we're focused on is, of course, the veering away of baseline. Anything that indicates something has changed, there's some discomfort. And we see that when he says, so you took her, Summer Wells, inside the house, and there's a bit of eye blocking there. Otherwise, there's no real blink rate. Anything indicating stress aside from when that one moment takes place, when she says that she took Summer into the house. And then we see some jaw shifting and lip licking behaviors, all indications of potential deception. There's a cluster of behaviors there that indicate something else is going on.
Okay. Would she do that? Would she say, hey, I'm going downstairs to play with my toys, or would she just go?
No, she'd tell the boys.
What'd you do then?
Well, I hollered for her at first.
And no response.
No response.
So what'd you do?
So I went directly down there. I looked for her everywhere I could look. In the room, under the blankets, whatever. And there, she was gone.
All right. What's the way to get out of there besides coming back upstairs?
Just the basement door.
That back door?
Yeah.
Okay. And if that door opens, could the boys hear it?
No, if they had the TV up loud.
Okay.
There are specific moments in this where she nods her head like this. It's not controlled. It's a very natural shaking of the head there. And typically when we're in disbelief of something or we want to emphasize something with head nods, it would be a more controlled, larger movement there. But what we're seeing is a more natural shaking of the head, no, even when she's saying things in the affirmative. Now, that itself does not mean that she's being deceptive. That alone would not say that she's lying about the situation, but it's pretty interesting where it pops up when she says that she would typically tell the boys that the Summer would typically say that she was in the basement playing, that she was going to go down there. And Dr. Phil himself raises a very valid question there when he says, now, would Summer typically tell the boys that she's going to the basement, or would she just head down there, which would be more typical of a 5-year-old to do, to just head down to the basement where she would like to play, especially if this is an everyday occurrence where she just typically goes to the basement. So it raises some questions there as to whether this was even typical behavior of Summer Wells to do, to head to a basement to play by herself, to tell her brothers that that's what she was going to do, and for her brothers who had been instructed to watch Summer Wells to just ignore this and stay put. So all of this raises valid questions and valid concerns, and Dr. Phil basically points that out with the question, would that typically take place where she would let her brothers know that's where she was headed? And that's where you start to see the subtle head nods pop up where perhaps she's not entirely telling the truth. And then she states that she came in, she calls for Summer Wells, and then she says she checks under the blankets and whatever, indicating the specific place where she looked for her 5-year-old daughter, under blankets, why she would believe her daughter was under blankets, especially not seeing perhaps a large figure under a blanket or anything like that. Maybe a pile of blankets would be more reasonable to check under for a potential body for her daughter, but she's very specific about certain things, like where specifically she checked, and then her chin goes out as she says that. There's that eye block, and then again the jaw shifting a bit in discomfort, some micro expressions there that indicate she doesn't even fully agree with what she's saying and her own narrative around this. But she's very specific about where she's checking on her daughter under blankets, and then she notes a basement, she notes in a bit a back door, and moments of time, specific time gaps that would not be natural in an otherwise chaotic situation where this should be a frantic search for her daughter. And it's also assumed and unnatural that Summer Wells is missing immediately when she steps back into the house. So on the surface, it seems that she's a mother who just was curious about where Summer Wells went, but it very quickly turns into a frantic search. She does not note that it's frantic, though. It doesn't turn frantic in her own narrative. As she's describing this sequence of events, that is actually unnatural.
Is she known to go out that back door?
She'll go out the back door, but then she'll circle around by her swing.
Okay. Back around to the front?
Yeah.
What we're seeing here is looking out that back door, correct?
Yeah.
All right. Now, there's a road there. Is that a
Driveway.
driveway? Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, can that be seen from your mother's camper?
No.
That's the back side of the house. You can't see that from her camper?
Not that part, no.
If you step out on a road there, you can about see your camper.
And that drive there goes up to the highway?
It circles around the house right there. It goes to the top, and then it goes down around to it. It circles all the way around the house.
Okay. Is that the back door?
That's the back door.
That's the door to her room?
Yes.
Okay. If she came out that back door and there was somebody there, could they have grabbed her right there?
Yes.
Yeah.
Then how would they make their escape? Back this direction?
Well,
Away from the camper?
the dogs led the scent, went straight down that dog trail by that yellow gym.
I want to note right here that a few things also don't add up in this very part of the narrative here. When Summer Wells is taken back inside, allegedly, Candace asks the boys, the brothers, to watch the 5-year-old, but then notes that they weren't watching her necessarily when she goes down into the basement. Now, it's not that they have to keep an eye on her and basically breathe down her neck, but it's pretty interesting that nobody follows her down into the basement, and that this seems to be typical behavior for her to say that she's going into the basement as a 5-year-old and nobody's going to watch her there, but then might head out the back door. No one's watching whether she heads out the back door or not, and that is then typical behavior for this 5-year-old to go out the back door and then typically go around to the swings. But Candace doesn't say anywhere in this that she looked towards the swings for her 5-year-old daughter. She notes several other places. She goes back to this blue thing in the backyard, this area where this blue thing is, and she goes elsewhere. She goes to the grandmother's trailer. She goes any other place than the swing set. And this is in the several interviews that I've seen of this case where Candace does not note the swing set, looking at the swing set, but in this interview notes, it would be typical for the 5-year-old to get out the back door and go towards the swing set to circle back around. It would not be normal for her to go straight out the back door. And it's also normal in her narrative, in her words, for this 5-year-old girl to be watched by her brothers while she's confined in a house, but not when she goes outside, so no one's watching whether she's going outside, and it's typical for her to go outside. What I would expect, what I believe anyone would expect here, is that if the brothers were going to watch her, the brothers would be with her as she goes out to the swing set. Something would have happened to one of the brothers if Summer herself had been abducted by this strange man that has suddenly appeared on 11 acres, by the way, of this property. A lot just does not add up. It's not reasonable. But non-verbally, what we see here is, again, aversion, eye blocking in specific instances, and her uncontrolled head shaking there in moments where we should not see it. And then earlier we even saw an uplifting of features, an asymmetrical eyebrow flash as she says blankets, and her shoulder even goes up. It's asymmetrical, but it's pretty interesting. It veers away from the baseline as she's saying blankets. So far she's really specific about basement, blankets, back door. not the swing set, not other things that she's noting would be typical of this 5-year-old to do. And on an 11-acre property, I would assume that if she's going to have the brothers watch this 5-year-old, the 5-year-old will not be allowed freely to roam out the back door onto the swing set without anybody noticing this. That's as far as Candace says anything in this interview. She does say, yeah, as the father here says a strong yes to the potential abduction of this girl, Summer Wells. It seems he's more confident in saying, yes, this is possible. She was abducted, than Candace, the mother, is stating that it is, as she says, yeah, not as confident as the father here. But there's no more nonverbal cues from the mother, nothing else from the mother in this particular interview. If you'd like to see me analyze another interview in this case from the mother, or even the father's nonverbal cues here, please let me know in the comment section. Please hit the like button. Please subscribe. Thank you for watching.